Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you. On this video I will be talking about Ozark Season 3 Episode 5. It is called It Came From Macaroni, however you say the word. So full spoilers from the start of this review. I think this is a little bit more of a stopgap episode, although I think there are like bits and pieces happening throughout the characters, and there are a couple like really dramatic sort of scenes, but I think in comparison with some of the early episodes this season, it's a little bit more uneventful, but still very good for what it's doing with the characters and slowly building things up. So they start, giving little chinks to the business to try and like Marty's letting on Ruth's sort of like financial like wranglings and her sort of like ways of making money, laundering, but they're also told to cut down on that so that it's not so obvious, and they're sort of like purposely holding back. There's also Marty and Ruth are guided to this farm, this ranch by the Navarro, which they think could be a good opportunity to launder money. But a big part of this episode is like this ongoing rift between the Navarro and the Cosgrove family, and by extension the sort of mafia and Marty and Wendy, because they hijack their bid to take over this farm. That they sort of rough into the stables. I think one of them kills the horse, or it's certainly implied they're going to do that. So Marty and Wendy are having this like peaceful nice weekend, and then it's all disrupted, and they just do it to send a message. And you can see the mind game starting to be played in this episode. Like there's a scene where randomly these birds show up outside the birds, like, if you excuse the pun, but these like ducks or eagles or whatever they were meant to be are like weirdly show up outside the house at one point. So a lot of back and forth in this episode. Also, there's a development because you've had the character of Helen's daughter, Irene, or Erin, who's there for the summer, and she sort of started hanging out with Jonah and Charlotte and trying to meet people, and she's already told Charlotte, I'm a virgin, but I want that to change this summer. I want to meet someone and I want to have sex. And it's kind of like this typical team thing in a way, but it's also Erin, I think, just wanting to appear more cool or to have that. It's almost like if she doesn't like pop her cherry, it's like she won't be one of the cool kids. It's just something to do with that. And this lines up quite nicely because they come over and a bunch of like these kids pop up on a boat, and one of them is someone who works for like Frank and the mafia, and I think his name's Eric or something, I forget his name, but they start hanging out and partying, and it's interesting. Charlotte is now a bit older and wiser, maybe, so a bit more cautious about this thing, and she's looking out for Irene, and I think there's a certain amount of pressure from Helen, because it's almost like, don't get my daughter mixed up in anything, look after her. So by extension, I think Charlotte feels that pressure that she better not let anything go wrong and happen to Erin on while she's there, otherwise it could come back strong on her. But it's also this nice link up to what happened with Charlotte in season 1, I think it was, when she randomly got with that rich preppy kid on the boat that time, and that was, I think we're assuming, was her first time having sex, and it wasn't the most romantic and memorable. And then of course he ended up leaving town without saying anything, so it's almost like she's learned from that experience and can pass that on to Irene. I keep saying Irene, Erin, and she warns her in this, but Erin is keen to like get together and hang out, and we see them hanging out. We don't actually see if there's much. I don't think they actually have sex in this episode, but they do start hanging out, and they're hanging out in a group. So it's an interesting thing for Charlotte to be a part of, but it actually leads somewhere else besides that, because Charlotte, or the kid, starts snooping around the bird's house, and he starts, when he's been with like Aaron, he starts like sneaking around, says, "Can I use the bathroom?" He goes in, and you see him just like listening at the door at one point when Wendy and Marty are talking, and this information leads like them to intercepting a drop, because Ruth has been like organising these drops, and it leads them to like just sending a message, just like trapping Ruth in the van and taking her for a ride, and just sort of roughing her up a bit. You really feel for Ruth, but it's obviously this message which is being sent. So there's a lot of back and forth in this episode between the Navarro side of things and the birds and the actual mafia. Another thing in this episode, which is something you did really see come in, and it's very, uncomfortable to watch, just the scene itself, I think, because of the age difference. But so Wyatt lies at the custody hearing for Darlene, because there's this custody hearing, and Wendy's there, and she's given this history of why Darlene isn't a fit mother, and she's playing it very heightened, very innocent, like just claiming, oh yeah, she's unstable, this sort of thing, she has mental issues. But in the end, Wyatt's testimony is strong, and it comes through, and Darlene is actually awarded Zeke, to like Wendy's dismay. But it's later on when they go back home, I guess almost as a way to thank him, Darlene seduces him and they have sex, and this has now become a sexual relationship, but also like I guess a romance as far as they're concerned. And once again, it's like nice sort of tight storytelling where the pieces of like the plot sort of intercept, or theme wise, because obviously you had Erin looking to become romantic and have sex for the first time, and we see this with Wyatt and with Darlene, that they have sex for the first time, and it's very disturbing stuff. And there's certain other things, like Ben has a bit more of a role. It's him who actually covers the Frank Jr.'s car in Birdseed, and this is part of the ongoing like rivalry and war, and a flock of birds caused some damage, so that's part of the shot back. Ben decides to do this himself. And the other stuff going on in the episode is then Maya is continuing her step up to monitor things. She's obviously offered Marty the deal. Now Wendy and Wilkes goes digging into Maya's past to see if there's anything incriminating on her, and they can't find anything. It's like, oh, she's incorruptible, but they sort of offer. Marty comes up with this plan where he will turn her. Basically, he will persuade her of the merits of what they're doing, and he will actually get her involved, and that'll be a way to sort of force her hand to sort of get her in like a compromising position. So it's an intriguing prospect, a meaty sort of plot to see Marty slowly trying to turn Maya. And Maya's another good character. I think she's a good addition to the cast. I really like the actress, and there's some spicy scenes with her and Marty. So Marty, by the end of this one, is pretending to go along with Maya in the hope of later turning her, basically. So it's a nice little twist on kind of scenes like in other things, like when you have agents trying to be turned. It's almost like the equivalent of a spy plot where an agent is trying to turn someone. It's almost what Marty's doing to Maya here, but in a different sort of context. So it's all very, very solid, strong stuff here as we're halfway through season 3. So that's Ozark once again, and a bit like Stranger Things, which I'm catching up with at the moment. I will catch up and build up to Ozark for the start of, well, the final episodes, which come out at the end of this month. So look out for more Ozark soon. Like and subscribe as always, and I'll see you guys later.